for a speech, and we now move on to David Davis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In normal times, this House would have been packed to the rafters with people listening to the Prime Minister's speech, because this is a new beginning for our country. There's no doubt about that. No doubt that in 2 days our freedom and our sovereignty will be much greater than it was as a result of this treaty. And I'll say in terms, this treaty is better, much better than would have been achieved under the previous strategy. Why do I say that? Well, the Prime Minister and Lord David Frost did a fantastic job on delivering this, and they delivered it by standing up to the European Union, calling their bluff successfully, time and time again, and delivering an outcome which we can make the most of. I will give way, of course.
Great. I was standing in this place when he was at the dispatch box, and he promised the House that we would have the exact same benefits from the Brexit. When we was challenged to put it in law, he said we don't need to put it in law because I've given my word, was what he said. How does he reflect on that period and the entire failure to deliver the exact same benefits he promised?
This is the point, because firstly it was a negotiating aim, as his own leader said at the time, but secondly, that's why I resigned, because the strategy we were pursuing then did not and would not deliver that. And the only honourable thing I could do was to stand down in that place. But this treaty is a new beginning, which of course is not to say it's perfect, and I agree with him on that. Northern Ireland, we have issues to deal with. Fishing, we have issues to deal with, and I'll come back to that. Gibraltar, we have issues to deal with. So it's not over. It's not over. And all will lead to uncomfortable decisions in the near future. But what now? Freedom is only as good as what you do with it. It's only as good as how you exploit it. And one day, frankly, is not enough for us to deal with a 1,200-page treaty in that respect. Why? Some may say, well, surely it's a day to celebrate, to vote yes and move on. Well, not at all. And why not? Because the European Union will, of course, use the treaty to its own advantage. And look at the past and see how it's done that. Look at Switzerland, for example. Switzerland struck a whole load of trade treaties, primarily in the 90s, but subsequently as well, with the European Union. In that, after that, a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, the Swiss people voted to restrict their migration, to cut back on free movement of people. What did the European Union do? It it bullied the Swiss government into giving in by saying we will withdraw all of the free trade arrangements we currently have. Now, that's important. Why? Because we haven't been through the whole 1,200 pages here to make sure we don't have any such issues in there. We do have one. Look at the fishing arrangements in 5 years' time. At that point, they can trigger an end to the trade and transport elements. Now, that's not impossible. We can deal with it, but we will have to devise our strategy to deal with it. And my point to the House today is this. We have to come back to this treaty and look at it in detail through all 1,200 pages to devise our strategy so we don't get into conflicts with the European Union, don't fall into traps, don't get into acrimonious disputes with them. They're our neighbours and our friends, and we have to devise a strategy which will keep them as neighbours and friends and maximise our joint benefits. And if the House does that, we will have a bright future. We will have better than the exact same benefits, to come back to the gentleman's point, because we will have bigger opportunities around the rest of the world, as the Department of International Trade has already demonstrated, as my honourable friend said. And on that basis, I'll vote for this treaty. Yeah.